Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into another video. This is the solo four-man hardcore group Iron. So let's jump right into today's topics. So, with the recent release of While Guthix Sleeps, there have been some new demi-bosses, I guess you could call them, in the Tormented Demons. So, uh, real quick, right before we jump into the drops and anything notable from those, I actually had membership on my main account as well as my Iron Man. These are just two accounts that I don't really play too often because I'm primarily focusing on this four-man group. However, I do have membership currently on them, so I figured if I'm going to be doing Path of Gluffrey, Defender of Varrock, and then While Guthix Sleeps on four characters that I have, since all four of these hardcores need that, I figured what's another two, right? So I actually live streamed it on Kick, but it was very intensive. I had my second monitor taking another two clients, so pretty much I had six clients up, and I still had this four, quadrants going with my four hardcores, but I just put the other two clients on the screen right in the center. For me, it was a second monitor, but to the viewership, it was right in the center. Just some smaller clients, still primarily focusing on the four that were hardcores. Yeah, that was a ton of very difficult quest lines to do. Um, I guess Defender of Varrock and Path of Gluffrey were not that long in general, but still, once it got to While Guthix Sleep, so I had to do, just some notable things. The Surrock Magus fight. That guy, I could not figure out, like, how to deflect his incoming elemental blasts or whatever. The guide says, like, oh, you gotta use, like, an opposite spell on it. Well, the corresponding opposite spell doesn't really make sense. It's like you got to use fire on air. Like, why are you burning the air? It doesn't really make sense. The only one that made sense was water on fire. So if I saw the fire one, I would cast like a water spell on it. But they come out like so quickly. It's like boom, boom, boom that you just like you literally don't even have time to cast because you have a 5 tick cast speed for your spells. So you can't even negate the big damage, and those things come hitting you for like 40s. So yeah, if you've ever done the Surrock Magus fight in While Guthix Sleeps, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, beware, take a lot of food. And I didn't want to brew myself completely down because after the second brew sip, my auto cast from Wrath spells for Fire Surge and whatnot would be already disabled from my auto cast on my staff. So there's a little bit of difficulty in balancing what types of food to bring. Just a ton of anglers didn't seem to be quite enough, so I balanced it by bringing a few brews and ended up knocking out that fight. A bit of KO potential. I think what I finally realized was that you have to like telegrab and then high alch that little bomb that he throws out. So doing that and then potentially entangling the agile or whatever little assassin also reduced damage to where I was only getting nuked by the combo of elemental blasts that he throws at you. But yeah, that one was difficult. I had to do that 6 times in a row. I just took it one at a time. Started with my main, struggled with it a little bit, but learned some tactics and yeah, got through. Then once you get underneath to the Lumbridge Swamp Caves, you have the entire sequence with all of the druids and the herb lore combinations, and everything is completely random. So you have 8 gigantic hallways, and I mean, they're not kidding when they wanted to put these very long hallways. I was like running out of stam, but I'm trying to move 6 characters around at once. I pretty much ended up just idling on like at least a couple of them. The first thing I did was I scouted out all of my options, so I immediately went to the end of every single hallway, and I had a giant spreadsheet opened up. It wasn't actually a spreadsheet, it's more just a notepad document, but I had to label and remember what each character I had because I have 6 different characters with 6 different routes. 6 different combinations of the end alter herblore mechanic going on there, and pretty much I had to write down everything. I kind of like pseudo labeled my own hallways like number wise, so I just went clockwise from the entrance and labeled the pathways as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 going around in a clockwise direction. And then I slowly had to keep track of what each one was at the end for each character. It was all completely random. Again, inventory space is pretty limited, so I just worked on it one by one and killed some of the druids off with the bloom spell on the druid pouch and got the secondaries. Luckily, I didn't have to do any banking for anything there. Some of my friends I heard from somebody that like, sometimes you have to telly out and leave for a specific herblore set because you don't necessarily get it from the druids and they stop dropping things after a while, but I just did it on all 6 characters and I didn't have any trouble. The druids dropped the exact combinations that I needed for all 8 pathways to get the little dolmen pieces that you then open the gate to the final boss. So yeah, it was a very interesting quest line. Again, doing Path of Gluffrey and Defender of Varrock. Right before that, right, like killing a ton of armored zombies to get the little red mist in the bottles. I was just pray melee piety on 6 characters with auto retaliate and just kind of went around in a circle, just attending to each of the 6 clients, making sure my hardcores weren't at risk in terms of like my prayer dropping or whatever. But yeah, just collect the red mist and then followed Runelight for that. While Guthix Sleeps did not have Runelight working, so they will not put the quest into the Quest Helper plugin for at least like a week until after it's come out. So this is to kind of preserve the new Quest release experience so that people can actually experience what it would be like to challenge themselves with taking on a new quest like that initially on release, rather than just click the blue highlighted Runelight pop-ups that it shows. So yeah, it was very challenging. I was reading through a wiki guide and just I would do one step and then I would read one step, knock it out on all 6, read the next step, knock it out on all 6, and I prioritized putting my main 2 accounts that weren't the hardcores through first, because if there was any type of boss fight or dangerous circumstance, I would experience it and encounter it first and then kind of be warned, knowing what I was getting into when I proceeded with the 4 hardcores. And then yeah, getting to the end of that fight, there was the balance elemental at the end there. I guess you could call it the final boss. You have to rapidly change your prayers back and forth between the 3 styles that he shows color for, and it gives you very little warning. Like, he changes color and you have about 1 game tick to react. I ended up getting the hang of it a few tries in, but definitely got slapped up a little bit on my first run through with my main account. Thankfully, it wasn't risking the hardcore because it would get kind of sketchy. He drains your stats, and sometimes, I rely on bringing just my room pouch with like spellbook teleports, right? So if he's just completely draining my stats and I get into this flurry of a panic, I could default to going to my magic spellbook to cast a teleport out, but because he's drained my magic to level 1, basically down to the bottom, I can no longer cast spells like that. So yeah, I made sure I had my escape crystal on for like 5 seconds of inactivity, with telling me in case there was any DC or mishap, but I could also just left click that, use that as an escape out if it came to that. But I had no trouble completing that on my 4 hardcores after I practiced with it on my first 2 characters. Again, I did this on 6 characters from start to finish, and was basically on the same step at every point on all 6 at the same time, so that I could kind of like do it on my main and then see what I was in for, then do it on the hardcores, know exactly what was coming my way. So then I guess there was the 2 Tormented Demons you have to fight after at the same time. They're alternating their styles. As long as you get them off tick, like one attacks right before the other, then I could just switch prayers back and forth. And then you just have to watch out whenever they do the little combo magic attack. Yeah, just like spam click to move away. And yeah, thankfully I stayed high health, anglered up above my max health, so it was like 120 HP. And with that Stone of Jas buff, with the like puts you at like 255 attack, strength, defense, range. I just kind of tri-bridged them with basically a crystal bow and the arc light, so they went down pretty easy. And yeah, that was the end of the quest. So yeah, got all the lamps, have access to Tormented Demons. Some things about the Tormented Demons themselves, though. Um, was it a bit too late of an update for me? Um, it might be. So some of the primary drops from Tormented Demons are the synapses. So the synapses allow you to create basically new Demon Bane weaponry. So you have the arc light already exists, right? But you can actually upgrade your arc light to an infinitely charged firelight, it's called. It has better stats, so better damage and accuracy against demons. But the arc light was already pretty strong. So is this like a necessary update, or is this going to be just something that I end up skipping? I'm not quite sure yet. I mean, it would have been great to have Tormented Demons out before I completed Slayer, because I'm 99 Slayer on each of these 4 accounts. I would have definitely done Tormented Demons as a Greater Demon task, like throughout the leveling process of getting to 99 Slayer. It's kind of like how you do Black Demons at Gorillas as you get to 99 Slayer. You do Hellhounds at Serb. You do Basilisk Knights. When you get them assigned, you do, you can do vampires at the Firewatch. Try to get some blood shards. There's like a ton of different tasks, right, that you want to kind of passively weave into your Slayer grind. Being after the 99 Slayer is achieved, though, on each of these 4 characters, it's going to be tough to think, like, do I really want to go back to doing Slayer to get Greater Demons so I can do Tormented Demons, because I do have access to them on all 4 accounts, so I could do it on any of the 4. I think my best weaponry and options is going to be obviously Arclight. I think that's my most powerful melee option for them. And then since my ranged weaponry is kind of limited, like I don't have a Bofa or a T-bow obviously, but Bofa would have been nice. I think Bofa's pretty powerful against them because they do have some decent defense. So since I don't have that, I don't think Blowpipe's very good there. They might have a high defense. So Crossbow seems kind of lame just because Rune Crossbow with the Ruby bolts. Yeah, you could hit a lot of hundreds with the procs, but I'm not quite sure if that's going to be better DPS than, for example, bringing a Mage Switch. So I could bring a Mage Switch with like the Arams, Occult, Tormented Bracelet, Eternal Boots, and just cast Demon Bane spells, because Demon Bane spells should be very accurate against them, and hit pretty high. So I'm thinking that's going to be better DPS than Rune Crossbow. So we'll have to see, but that's if I decide to do Tormented Demons. I'm currently like still struggling with Hydra. I am over 2200. I just got a new task, so I was doing a ton of Konar recently. I've been weaving in some like metal dragons here and there, so if I get, for example, rune or addy dragons, it's a very small amount from Konar. She literally assigns you as little as like 3. So she's like, kill 3 rune dragons or 3 addy dragons, or maybe it's like 5 or 6 sometimes, but being that that's such a small amount, I take the free points, the free task streak, and I complete them. I just use my Zami Hasta, I have my anti-fire shield, I'm fully potted, praying mage piety with my full bandos. I have pretty good armor, it's just I don't have the best weapon with the Hasta. It's a bit limited on the DPS, but on task with the Slayer bonus from the Slayer helmet, you get through them, and I've been doing the Addy Dragons and Rune Dragons that I get from Konar. Potentially going for like a Dragon Crossbow. The limbs, I guess technically that would be an upgrade for me, but again, I don't really have access to Dragon Bolts, which would be the primary upgrade from that. So yeah, kind of being limited there. It would just be a small accuracy bonus, seeing as I wouldn't really upgrade any type of bolts, not having access to dragon bolts as a resource. So it's the tough Iron Man life, but you know, it is what it is. You know, I would love to just have the lance. Obviously, that's why I'm working on Hydra. If I had the lance, then I would just shred these metal dragon tasks. But I probably wouldn't be doing Konar if I had the lance, because I'd be off to raids. I'm primarily hunting it to do Chambers of Xeric, so I could start getting some of those uniques out of the way. Still need to get augury, still need to get other dex scrolls and other augury scrolls for my alternate accounts in the case that I want to PVM on them. I would like to do some gauntlet on them, potentially get some shards. I have some plans with, you know, how I'm going to utilize if I were to get a BOFA, for example. So if I get an enhanced crystal weapon seed, so a lot of Iron Man are just like no brainer, right? You want to corrupt it, you need 2,000 shards, you corrupt your BOFA, and it's infinite ammo. Now, if I did that right away on my main character here, my main account of the 4-man hardcore group, I'd be setting myself up for a permanent fixture on that account, so I wouldn't be able to transfer it around anymore. Now, I think before I end up making that decision, I want to judge, okay, do I want to do anything with the BOFA on a different character beforehand? So one of my other alts in this group has the ability to not only do DT2, but I already have Secrets of the North, is it called, where you get Muspa. You get access to doing Muspa. So with Secrets of the North unlocked and Muspa unlocked, I basically could do Muspa on that character, but not my main here. So if I corrupt it on this character, then I'm kind of limiting myself. I won't be able to BOFA, for example, on the Muspa. I could just use Crystal Bow, but again, that sounds kind of lame. I would much rather use the BOFA and just do like a ranged only method. I don't know, maybe I would still do hybrid where I bring magic, try to freeze it, play it the safe route rather than doing step backs constantly and risking taking damage. There's a lot to consider when it goes into doing the Muspa grind because, again, like I said, I did complete the Song of the Elves. This was in a couple videos ago. I have Song of the Elves done on all 4, so I have the option to use the BOFA with Crystal Armor on any of the characters. So if I did get a BOFA, for example, I would first try to pass it around a little bit, get some use out of it. I would just be using charges on my arrows fired off from it, but that's not that big of a deal. So crystal shards are pretty generous. You get 100 attacks just for 1 shard, and doing like a couple gauntlets, you stack like 20-30 shards up. 30 shards, that's 3,000 attacks. That's quite a lot of BOFAing. However, yeah, obviously those charges are limited. You're still using charges for the armor as you take damage through it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to consider, and I guess more on that later whenever I get to that stage. If I do get an enhanced seed, then we'll see how I want to tackle doing Muspa on the character that has Secrets of the North done. And then, yeah, I have access to DT2, so Leviathan, right? So I want to grind Leviathan. BOFA is best in slot there. I don't see myself ever doing DT2 anytime in the near future on all 4 of the characters because there is a wilderness aspect to doing Secrets of the North. You have to do the General Shadow mini quest, which requires you to do Curse of the Empty Lord mini quest, which requires you to go all through the wilderness in level 50 plus wild. So in the deep wildy, you have to talk to the individual ghosts to get the pieces of the ghostly robes. And I've gone over this before, but each one of my characters has a different path. So the one character that I did it on had the easiest path, where all I had to do was like the Graveyard of Shadows in level 19 wild, and maybe like the Bandit Camp where it was like 25 wild. I could still see pod out if I needed to, if I saw a PKer. So I did that on that character, which is why he has Secrets of the North done, but my other characters do not. So I would have to kind of make use of this one character that has access to Muspa as well as DT2 bosses potentially before I end up committing to, say, corrupting a Bofa. Because, yeah, obviously I would want to use it at raids. Obviously, corrupting it is beneficial in the long run, but yeah, we'll have to see as I temporarily kind of pass it around, make use of it. Other than that, yeah, the Tormented Demons, they dropped the Burning Claws. So, yeah, realistically, I don't really care for upgraded Demon Bane weaponry because I've already explained Serb is done, Demonic Gorillas are done, Zami's pretty much done. I don't really have any real reason to do Abyssal Sire. That's the other demon that you can use Demon Bane weaponry on. So, like, what is the Firelight really doing for me? It would be okay on Duke. So Duke's like the only grind that realistically I would be using it for. I guess the Tormented Demons themselves, but why would you need it for Tormented Demons if all you get from Tormented Demons is the drop? So yeah, Burning Claws are the one exception. They do drop these. They have a decent spec apparently that inflicts some burn damage. It's similar to Dragon Claws type of DPS as far as the spec weapon goes, but I do hear that Dragon Claws still beat them out ever so slightly, and since I'm going to be doing Chambers of Xeric anyway, I'm most likely going to run into a pair of Claws. I need to do Chambers for all sorts of items like Ancestral, for eventually getting a Shadow, and things like the Dragon Hunter Crossbow will be an excellent upgrade for the raid itself, and obviously the Twisted Bow. So I would love to get a Twisted Bow, Kodai, Elder Maul. Any of those mega rares honestly are a huge upgrade, but obviously the Twisted Bow is the primary focus. So if I'm going to be doing potentially like 1,000 raids for a Twisted Bow, even more even if I go dry, most likely going to stumble into a pair of Claws or two. So I don't really need to do Tormented Demons for the Burning Claws. So unfortunately, even though I do have access to Guthix Sleeps on each of these 4 characters, I most likely don't see a real necessity to go and grind them. So yeah, we'll see if I end up doing that. Might try my luck there, do like a task, see if I can get a Synapse in 200 KC, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, as far as that goes, skilling wise, like right now I'm just trying to dunk some prayer out. So I'm kind of standing here. This is kind of an interesting method. So if you are a solo hardcore, the best way to utilize Dragon Bones or any types of bones for prayer is to use them on a Gilded Altar, because you cannot use the Wilderness Altar, which doubles them effectively, due to BKers, and you would lose your hardcore status. So, for obvious reasons, right, I have to kind of sit here at my altar and use them. Now, if you weren't in a group of any sort, you would have to tally to your own house, and then while you would light the incense burners with 2 Marantils, and then you would do an inventory bones. Now, when I leave to bank, the instance of my house with the incense burners still burning kind of resets, and even though there's more duration on them still, it kind of resets and I lose the incense burning. So I would have to bring 2 Marantils every single trip. But right now I'm kind of making use of just parking one of my alts in here, doing some fletching, and he kind of holds the instance open, and I can be like the Marantil, mule. I can just sit here with an inventory of Marantils and light them as needed while I just do some fletching, throwing some feathers on arrow shafts to prepare for the eventual 99 fletching grind. I have to buy a ton of broad arrows for that, so all this money from doing Hydra is going to start coming into play here. I've actually been losing a ton of GP at Hydra because I'm not bringing High Elk. I'm bringing the Arceus spellbook so I can use a couple things, right? Thralls are just extra DPS. I cast them twice every single kill. So on average, a Thrall does about 40 damage over the course of its lifespan. So in general, I'm probably doing like 30-35 damage with it per cast. So 2 times 2, I'm probably doing like 60 damage with it. Yeah, that doesn't really sound like a lot now that I put it that way. In fact, it's probably not worth the prayer at that point. But, it is what it is. It might shave off a few seconds of the fight. And he already drops like a ton of super restores as supplies. So rather than just endlessly stacking a ton of prayer supplies, I kind of chew through it and hopefully get through the task a little bit quicker. But yeah, Thrall is probably a bit more effective on a more lower defense boss. Hydra's kind of this beefy boy in terms of HP, but his defense is really low, so you kind of just shred through him with a weapon like a blowpipe. Thrall's not that important because his health total is so high, but I still do it because a couple reasons, right? I'm also using Death Charge. My method is to BGS spec, try to lower the defense a little bit. If I can land a reasonable BGS, then I have a noticeable increase in accuracy for my blowpipe, given that the item was nerfed a couple years ago in that its accuracy was heavily reduced and most of the darts below like dragon basically were all nerfed significantly. So the blowpipe itself though lost like 15 or something accuracy. It might have been 30, I can't quite remember, and the darts themselves lost a bit of accuracy as well as range strength. So amethyst darts still work pretty well, but again, you really chew through supplies, so I'd like to land a big BGS. That's why I use Death Charge on the RC spellbook. It allows me to upkeep basically one spec every single kill, guaranteed, as long as I get that 15% back from Death Charge every kill. And then the most important part is I'm making good use of all the Hydra bones. So sometimes you just don't want to bank every single time you fill up your inventory on Hydra bones because the run back there is quite a trek. So you lose like a lot of time. You lose a couple minutes just going to the bank back and forth if you're going to bank the 2 bones per kill every single time your inventory was full. So a lot of people just either bury them on the spot, which is way less prayer XP than using them at an altar or something like Demonic Offering. However, I'm just making use of being on the RCS spellbook, and what I can do is I can just loot them and cast Demonic Offering as I go, and this converts them into a hefty amount of prayer XP for me, and alongside the Dragon Bones, so that's what I'm currently chewing through right now, trying to get through all these Dragon Bones, get a couple extra prayer levels under my belt here, which does just add to my PVM experience as I have longer duration overheads and offensives. Every time I use an altar, right, that's just good for having higher prayer. So I may as well use them, right? I have them banked. Hydra drops a ton of Dragon Bones noted, so easily worth it. And yeah, currently I'd like to get the agility shortcut getting to Hydra. So I recently did a ton of agility to get from like 83-ish to 86, so I could do a Calphite Queen shortcut. Well, now I tried to use the Hydra shortcut, and it says you require 88 agility. So being that I'm already 86, that's not going to be that big of a deal. I'll just go knock out those 2 agility levels before returning to Hydra. As I'm over 2200, I'm about 2300 KC now without the claw. I've gotten 7 leathers. I feel like it's going to be worth it to just unlock this shortcut. I was a bit stubborn to do it from the very get-go because I thought maybe, okay, I'll just do 1000 Hydra, get 1 claw, right? It's a 1 in 1k, but going over 2x drop rate now and being dry still, there's no telling when this thing's going to come in, so I think now is the point in which I'm more likely to invest getting that agility to have that shortcut, and it should save me some time on the trips and the run backs just as we go forward. I'm sitting on a Hydra task right now, so right after these bones I'll go knock out some agility. I've been doing a lot of skilling on the side, so as I was doing Konar Slayer, I'd get some AFK tasks where I don't want to skip because it's a waste of points. So I just kind of chill in there with my whip and AFK the Slayer as I always do, which lets me kind of tend to the other 3 characters. So I've been doing a ton of Blast Furnace, just chewed through like 10,000 gold ore, made like 5,000 or 6,000 mithril and a couple thousand addy into bars, and so it's nice to get a ton of smithing done from that because I'm sitting on a lot of banked XP. I would like to also continue as I go and do this agility. I'll have a lot of time to tend to my alt characters. So I would like to do some Mortmire fungi gathering. I would like to do some red spider egg gathering. And that will let me convert a lot of my banked herbs in terms of Avanto and Snapdragon into Herblore XP, get some useful potions out of it in the meantime, because those are the 2 that I'm missing some secondaries from. Effectively, most of the other ones I have more than enough secondaries, so I'm kind of just short on the herbs themselves. Some of the things, there's a ton of molten glass to be made across my characters, so I've been gathering the 84 buckets of sand from Bert every time at the end of my farm run if I hadn't yet that day. So as I do a lot of daily runs like birdhouse, farm run, farming contract, after my farming run I just tally to Watchtower, I run west right to Bert and collect the 84 sand. I've been doing that for quite a while now. I have over 10,000 sand on each of these 4 characters just from passively getting it from Bert. So combine that all, that's over 40,000 sand that I have to work on. I should have the giant seaweed. The giant seaweed comes in abundance once you just do a few seaweed runs. So I'm definitely over on the seaweed. I just need to smash that out using super glass make, sitting at a bank. So this would be a good time to do that while I'm doing agility, like click an agility obstacle, go to the molten glass character, use super glass make, look back at the agility character whenever there's like a tiny delay in the animation to actually create the molten glass from the spell. So like while that's happening, I'll go click the next obstacle on the agility course, and then tend back to my other glassmate character. Get ready for the next inventory and whatnot, and keep the process rolling. So I'd like to get through all that sand. It's gonna stack up like close to, what is that? Probably like 60,000 molten glass. It might be more. So that'll be a ton of crafting XP. I would love to get each character to 90 something crafting. I believe it is, let me just check right here. So is it going to be weaponry? Yeah. Amethyst dart tips required 89 crafting. So I would like to just sit here at amethyst. So as I mine it, just have a chisel in my inventory rather than having to bank all the amethyst and process it on an account that has the crafting level required to make them into dart tips right away. I can just sit here and instead of ever banking, just click the chisel on them and option 4 to the amethyst dart tips, make them on the spot. That way I don't also have to bog down my main character here as the one with the high enough crafting level. I can just have them kind of made and processed and then fletch them on any of the characters so long as I have that 90 or 91 fletching as well. So yeah, I have a ton of skilling goals coming up. I've explained what my plans are as far as Tormented Demons, as far as potentially doing some Gauntlet on various characters, and yeah, like see what I do, what I end up using the BOFA for if I get one. I would probably share it to the account with Secrets of the North, do a ton of Muspa, try to get a Venator Bow, but most importantly I want to just corrupt my imbued heart. So I have an imbued heart but it's not saturated yet. So first things first, I would use the essence that's required to saturate the heart. That will be eventually good for things like the shadow in the future. Also just really nice for the Trident of the Swamp. That'll increase that damage if it's ever utilized somewhere outside of like raids where you're overloaded or salted. Anywhere else basically in the game where you're doing PVM, that comes into play. So yeah, those are kind of the goals. There's a lot coming up. There are still more updates from Jagex. We're going to see the new Araxor boss that I talked about in a recent video coming out fairly soon, if it's not already out by the time this video gets uploaded. Recording this a bit in advance, but then we also have that group dragon boss or whatever the heck it's going to be. It's going to be some kind of group boss, not quite along the lines of Nex. I think it's going to be a lot more mid-game focused. Nex is like the highest end of the end content for higher level mains and accounts in general. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they come out with that. So it's going to kind of conclude the video for now. Be sure to check out the description. There is my Kick link in the description. Follow my Kick. I do live stream there and I have been quite frequently nowadays. So you can catch me live. Sometimes I'll do a recording while I'm live. So I will let people know in the chat if I am currently recording or something, and I can easily like pause the video, talk to chat, whatever. Come hang out, check out my Kick, give me a follow. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also really helps me out. You could like and comment on the video as well. Also helps with the whole YouTube growth. So yeah, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you made it this far, be sure to check those things out, and I will catch everybody on the next video. Till then, peace.